Welcome to Sound Words, a ministry broadcast of Maranatha Baptist Church in Shelby, North Carolina. I'm Pastor Jim Davidson, and each week we come together to explore life's toughest issues through the unchanging truth of God's holy word. We're talking today about caring for hurting people. And Dr. Love, there's just a lot of people in pain out there.
There sure is. There is, for a lot of different reasons. In most cases, it can be tied to the broad thing of loss. People lose jobs, death is one of the things that people think of as loss, but there's just so many more than just that.
It doesn't have to be death. It could be the loss of a job or relational issues with someone.
Loss of health. It can be a lot of things, yeah. And a lot of it just depends on how the person responds to it.
Right. I mean, as it's been said, my preacher used to say you're either coming out of a trial, you're in the midst of a trial, or you're going into a trial. And those trials oftentimes are a result of loss or pain of some sort.
Right. Yeah, I heard a preacher once say, if you preach to hurting people, you'll always have a crowd. So
right.
That's...
Well, what's the difference between what we would call a loss and when really somebody goes into a crisis?
A crisis paralyzes. You can no longer function in a normal kind of way. It can be the crisis. The crisis could lead to depression. In some cases, at least a hospitalization. It can be that serious.
So it can get pretty severe then.
Yes, it can be. Yeah, but it paralyzes. And crisis does not always mean that it's something bad. It's interesting that there are sometimes where it's a good thing and people can't handle it.
It's just about how they're processing or their inability to process.
Yeah, that's exactly right, yeah.
So would you say that for one person, a situation may be a loss, but that same situation may be a crisis in someone else's life?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think one of the takeaways I get from that is we can't look at somebody else going through something maybe we have and expect them to react like we did.
Yeah. Well, and I think this happens a lot of times with a parent who loses a child. And one of the difficulties during that time is that each parent processes and grieves differently. And the other person misreads it and say, well, you didn't really care. When our daughter passed away, one of the things that scared me is that the national statistics at that time is 70% of marriages fail at the loss of a child. And part of it is because people don't understand. The husband grieves one way, the wife grieves another way, and they struggle. It creates real marital conflict.
Wow, I had not heard that before. Yeah, that's staggering.
Yeah, it just really, that's one of the things that scared me about all of that.
Other than a loss of a loved one or even in your situation, a loss of a child, where do these crises really creep up from? They
come from, obviously, from the soul, the emotions, and how we handle it. I think one of the things we need to understand, and especially for a born-again believer, we think that, well, I shouldn't feel this way because I'm a Christian. And that's not true. We're human. And that's one of the reasons why God is the God of all comfort. If we didn't need comforting, he wouldn't be the God of all comfort.
Right.
So, and we certainly have even the Lord in the Garden of Gethsemane needing comfort as he's looking toward the cross.
Now, what about those people that maybe it's not one great big crisis in their life, but it's just one event after another, and they don't really process the first one, and they just kind of stuff it away, and then the next one, and then the next one, and eventually their life is a crisis.
Yes, absolutely. And that usually is the whole issue of stuffing. And that's one of the reasons. It's interesting. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus says, blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. And the word mourn there literally means to bring to the outside what's happening on the inside. And then the Hebrew construction, or the Greek construction, is they only shall be comforted. But Christians don't want to do that. I think in church, people say, how you doing? Well, we're doing fine. And
right.
They're lying through their teeth, you know. But it's just, we should not be stuffing.
I call it the Sunday face.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. So there can be a lot of different reasons for it.
We've looked at several of different ways that people can find themselves in a crisis. I've heard that there are different stages that people go through when they experience a loss or they're going through a crisis. And I was wondering if you could walk us through that.
Yeah. There's a classic done by Dr. Kubler-Ross that's kind of the standard. There's 5 stages, and the first one is denial. And a lot of people get stuck in denial, and that's one of the reasons for PTSD, is that they just deny, and then all of a sudden it comes on them, and it's almost worse than the original crises. After denial is anger, and Christians really struggle with that one. They think, I ought not be angry, and we're angry at the circumstance. We're angry. I find children who lose their parent are angry at their parents for abandoning them. So the anger doesn't always make sense, but it's there nonetheless.
Do you think many people get angry at God for their circumstances?
Yes, they do. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then we go to bargaining, and we promise God all kinds of things. And then when that doesn't work, we go into isolation or depression. And that's a danger. All of them are dangerous, but this is very dangerous because people get stuck there. And I've known people who have been in that stage for years and never really do resolve it. When they come out of that, you get resolution or acceptance.
So is there any way, even if you're aware of these situations, I know that it's been almost a year ago now that you lost Mrs. Love, and just going through that grief and going through those stages of loss, is there a way to expedite that, to go through it faster, or to skip one of the stages?
No, there's not. And that's one of the things that when I lost her, I knew the 5 stages. And I work with people all the time. So I'm telling the Lord, let's just get with it and get through these things. So I want to get on with it. No, there is no way to do it. Now, next podcast, we'll talk about the bridges from one to the other, so people know how to go to that bridge. But I think that one of the big problems with Christians is we feel we shouldn't go through them. But again, remember, we're human.
Right,
and
right.
We're going to go through them. It's natural.
Now, you've told me before that there's no set pattern for how long someone's going to be in denial. You said just a moment ago, sometimes people can get stuck in it.
Yeah.
But I think you told me once that sometimes people can be in it as short as a day,
yeah.
and they move on to the next.
Right. A lot of it depends on the individual. And the other thing that's frustrating is you can ping pong back and forth. You just get through one of them, and you feel, all right, I'm through, and then all of a sudden you find yourself back in it. For example, people who, they keep going back to anger a lot, and that's a struggle.
Right.
And again, it depends on the person's temperament too, but yeah, that's one of the struggles.
So I think understanding the 5 stages is good. It's helpful, but where does the Word of God come into play in all of this?
I think individuals need to understand that we're human, and that the Bible's written to human people. I've talked to people who talk about the idea that if I express myself in anger or depression, that the grace of God isn't sufficient, so I have a bad testimony. And the fact is, that's not true. I think about Elijah in 1 Kings 19. He was so depressed, he wanted God just to take his life. Even in the Garden of Gethsemane, the Bible talks about he was pressed. And so, because he was human.
Right.
And so it's okay to be that way.
Right, right. So I think that when we start looking at like you said, we'll talk about the bridges between those in an upcoming episode. But how do we help somebody that is going through those different stages?
I think there's 2 things. First of all, we need, as pastors and counselors and just friends, we need to learn to listen. People tend to throw Job's friends under the bus. However, they spent 7 days with him and didn't say a word.
I often say that Job's friends were the best friends in the world until they opened their mouth.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
But how many times? Would you call that I call that the ministry of presence?
Yes,
just being there with somebody.
Absolutely.
I think sometimes people are apprehensive to go to someone that has experienced loss or they're in that crisis because they say, I don't know what to say. And sometimes just being there is saying a lot more than you would with your mouth.
Absolutely. And then I think we need to learn to rely on the power of God. Even as we are there silently, we can be praying, asking for the power of God to give us insight and to give that individual grace.
I think that in these times, Psalms are so very helpful.
Yeah.
They just, and I know in crisis in my lives and in seasons of loss, that God has just comforted my soul through his Psalms. And they're emotional writings.
Yes.
And so I think through that is not that we're just going to throw a trite verse at somebody and say that's going to fix it all.
Yeah.
But I think coming in and saying, listen, God has soothed my soul through this, and I'm not pretending to know what you're going through, but let me share this psalm with you and remind you of who God is and what he can do for you. And I think that can be a great source of encouragement and help. I hope we never get the idea that it's going to push somebody out of those stages of loss.
Right.
But you can hold their hand through that.
That's exactly right. I think 2 Corinthians 1:3-4 says, "Blessed be God, even the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and the God of all comfort, who comforteth us in all our tribulation, that we may be able to comfort them which are in any trouble by the comfort wherewith we ourselves are comforted of God." I use verse 4 all the time with people. Say, look, God's going to use your experience.
Yes.
Not only in the pain, but also discovering the power of God in your life. And you're going to help other people through it. And that sometimes helps people.
I think it does. It gives them purpose for why they're going through this difficulty. And we all want purpose.
Yes, yeah.
One of the things I've used this verse many times as well, and I try to gently encourage them. The only way that God's going to be able to use this is if they receive that comfort from God.
Exactly.
Otherwise, they're not going to be able to help somebody later to walk them through it.
Yeah,
and
exactly right.
I'm never trying to guilt somebody, but sometimes you just want to remind them, listen, there is a purpose for this, but you need to lean into God at this time, so you're going to have something to give the next person that you see going down that same road.
I think one of the dangers is that scriptures can be misused. I think Romans 8:28 is misused when people are hurting. That's the last thing they want to hear.
Right.
So be careful.
Yeah, you don't just come up to somebody and say, it's going to be okay. God's promised that. And that's not exactly helpful.
It's almost as though we minimize their pain, and we just cannot do that.
Right. I think when you maintain the genuine interest, I'm going to tell you that's a failing of mine. I want to be there when somebody's hurt, but then there's another crisis in somebody else's life as a pastor, and I've been guilty of kind of letting people struggle through the back end by themselves, and I think it's important that we keep them in their situation. I don't want to say first and foremost, but not on the back burner.
Yeah, I think the other thing that we need to do in our Baptist churches are good at this. In Galatians 6, it says, bear ye one another's burdens. I think that the family life involvement, I think that our people tend to say, well, the pastor will take care of it. That's his training, that's his calling, and so forth. And they abrogate their own responsibility to bear burdens.
Right.
Possibly as pastors, we need to help them be able to pick that up. I know Dr. Gene Getz says something. He said that we all are counselors.
That's good.
To one degree or the other.
Right. If we're going to be a friend to somebody.
Yeah.
If you are having that ministry of presence and you are just walking with somebody through that valley of their life and they open up to you, tell me, about the confidence that you need to keep on what somebody shares with you.
Yeah, we have to be very careful with that. We just Because if you break confidence, you've just destroyed that relationship.
I mean, I think some people, like you're talking about before, they expect the pastors not to say anything.
Right.
And I tell young men that are training for ministry, I say, listen, you've got to be a black hole of information. What comes in can never make its way back out.
Yeah.
But I think that sometimes when people are talking to someone else, they think they're going to have that confidence, but the other person says, well, I'm not a pastor, I'm not this or that, and it just gets out, and that's so damaging.
Oh, it is. And I think that's one of the things that pastors can do is help people not only bear on his burdens, but have the responsibility of confidentiality.
Yeah,
I think that's very important.
Yeah, I'll go a step further. When someone knows that they have that, there can be a freedom of expression then.
Yes.
And I think that is real and true healing can really begin or accelerate when they have that confidence and that trust that what they say to me or to whoever they're talking to is going to be able to stay right where it's at.
Yeah. When I was pastoring up in Philadelphia, we had focus groups, and the focus group I ran was on depression and anxiety disorders, but we had anywhere from 15 to 35 people in the group. And I would tell them, we're going to become a family, and we're going to be able to talk and say whatever, but we've got what is said in focus group stays in focus group. And after about 6 weeks, it was about a 13-week thing, but after about 6 weeks, they began to feel the liberty to talk. And it was amazing what happened when they felt comfortable to talk about what was going on.
And sometimes it's surprising what they're willing to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
What would you say to somebody that is considering giving somebody advice that's going through a crisis in their life?
Make sure that your advice is biblical, and make sure that you're being led of the Spirit of God.
I had a professor once, Dr. Charles Surratt,
yeah.
and he I remember this just as though I'm sitting in his class today. He said, be careful what advice you give somebody. They just might take it.
Exactly right, yeah. I tell my counseling class that all the time because I say it's scary to realize that people are going to actually do what you tell them to do.
Yes, I remember the first time when I left college and I was counseling somebody, and boy, I could just hear Dr. Surratt's voice in the back of my head, because it is a big it's a big deal.
Yeah, it is.
To tell somebody this is the steps that you need to take in order to move forward. Yeah. And boy, I always beg God that I have his heartbeat on it before I ever share or counsel somebody to go in a certain direction.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So when somebody is struggling and they are kind of closed in, they're not willing to talk, do you push yourself on them? Do you just sit there with the ministry of presence? How do you proceed with somebody that just doesn't want to open up?
I think you're just there for a while just so they know that you really care. Eventually, when they're ready, they'll talk about it. One of the things that I've done in ministry of counseling is that you can't help a person until they're ready to be helped. That gets frustrating sometimes.
Can you help them to see their need, or do you just have to step back?
You have to just step back. It's kind of like soul winning. You can't lead a person to Christ unless they want to get saved.
Right.
And it's the same thing. When I was first in the ministry, people would say, so-and-so is having marital problems, you better go out there. And I found out quickly that doesn't work, because then the two of them gang up on you.
Well, nothing unites like a common enemy, I guess.
That's right. So I just learned, and then in some classes and talking to experienced counselors, they said, yeah, you have to wait until they're ready. Once they're ready, then you can help them.
I know we want to help them emotionally. We want to help them spiritually. Are there ever times where you have to help somebody physically?
Yeah. Well, yes. Yeah. Just, like you said, the ministry of presence is part of it. There's a lot of ways in which we can help them. I think that one of the things that I appreciated, except it was way more than what I can say. When my wife passed away, I had all kinds of food given. My freezer's still full. But I appreciated the thought behind it. And sometimes people don't know what to say. They want to help you, and they can do that. But Yeah, there's a lot of different ways. Just being there is a big thing.
I think one of the things that is looked over oftentimes is the ministry of prayer as
Yes.
well. And that is just letting somebody know that you're praying for them. And, I don't always let everybody know every time I pray for them. And it's not just to be seen, but I think it is an encouragement to know that there are people that are praying for you, that know that you're hurting. But don't say it if you didn't do it.
Right, exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. Christians are really good at lying about that. I'm praying for you,
Right.
But I think that's very important.
Well, I think that as we look at those different stages of crisis or grief, and I think we've looked at just a few ways that we're able to step in and be a help to somebody, I look forward to looking at how we can, when we're going through a crisis ourselves, bridge between one stage and the next. Well, this has been Sound Words with Jim Davidson, pastor of Maranatha Baptist Church, and Dr. Bruce Love, and we will talk to you next time. If you're listening today and you have some questions, call Maranatha Baptist Church, and we would love to be a help and a blessing to you if we can. The number is 704-401-58. And there's always an answering machine available. If no one does answer, we hope that you'll leave your name and number. If you have a question or a comment, you can call that same number, 704-600-8591, or you can email soundwords@nbcshelby.org, soundwords@nbcshelby.org.